Thanks for staying with us. Now, one of the 4 pillars of a strategy to grow the economy in the medium-term budget policy statement is building state capability. Now, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana says the mid-term spending adjustments are aimed at maintaining the integrity of key institutions and building a capable state. The Public Service Commission says that professionalizing the public service is critical and should be a priority. Professor Mandla Makhanya, Commissioner at the Public Service Commission, joins us live now. Thank you so much for your time, Prof, and good evening to you. Now, according to the Finance Minister today, Pillar 4 seeks to deliver a reasonable and reliable standard of public service that will foster the necessary environment for more growth and jobs. Looking at the current rate at which things are going when it comes to the public sector, can we reach this goal?
Well, our view from the side of the Public Service Commission is that we certainly can reach this, provided professionalization gets underway. We've been up and about working on that. I mean, as you know, that there's been a workshop that started on Monday until today, to look into producing, a plan of the implementation of professionalization framework. Because, as we all know, it was adopted by our cabinet in October 2022. So we now have to start doing rather than talking.
And you speak about a very critical aspect of actually getting down to doing. What does it look like at a practical level, for example, if we are to talk about a capable state?
Well, if we were to talk about a capable state, I think the starting point should be simply just to say, are we in a position to speak about providing a service that in the first instance is insulated from undue political interference, but also are we providing a service that is performed by those who qualify to provide that kind of service? So that is why then the starting point is to begin to do this comprehensive review of ensuring that those who are serving the state or working in the environment across the board in the public administration, are appointed on the basis of merit.
And at the same time, I suppose, ensuring that those who are appointed are given the space to work and are not being told by those who come with political interference or even influence to say, we are actually in charge.
That's precisely the point. That is why we also are working on the question of a political administrative interface, so that roles can be clearly defined. We cannot afford a situation where we find that we are not certain about what is expected of us at any given point in time. But simultaneously, there has to be a relationship, between those who are operating within the public administration sphere and those who are political actors. So that is why having a guaranteed system that is professionalized will guarantee that we are not going to be sitting in a situation where those conflicts are going to interfere in the work that has to be delivered.
And Prof, I want to stay with this point because it's critical. When you are now implementing, this work that you are obviously now tasked with ensuring that it gets underway, how do you begin to advise that this particular relationship strikes that balance that you're talking about, to say it's important that you have those in political office, but it's also important to have those who are working as public servants in these particular offices, but there needs to be a fine line and there needs to be a balance on both?
Absolutely. We are saying to ourselves that professionalization will not only be starting with us as South Africa. It has happened, in other parts of the world. So what we have had in the workshop was an opportunity of reflecting on what we have put in place ourselves, but obviously looking at what has happened in terms of international experience. We have the United Nations Development Program, who mainly has funded, the work that we've been doing. But at the same time, alongside them, we have the World Bank, who have the work that they are currently doing with the local government, where they've actually isolated the area of the CFOs in municipalities, for the proper kind of training that is necessary and appropriate within that kind of space in order for them to do what is expected. But what we are then saying is that as we put the processes in place, training is then going to be a key driver of the activities that we're going to be doing. So with the National School of Government, for instance, that is going to be driving the whole notion of training, those pillars of the professionalization that we've actually agreed will have to be then the driving process in the context of work that has to happen. So when we appoint, for instance, let's argue that that appointment is not simply just going to be happening in a manner where it is not going to be transparent, but rather, let's say for argument's sake, you are going to be appointing a CFO. You are then going to be having the profession represented in that particular space in order to be guaranteed that the person is in the first instance part and parcel of that profession that we are looking at, but secondly, that the person has the necessary and requisite kind of knowledge and skills that are required. But we'll also have to test the competence of the person who's being appointed. So it's one thing to have a qualification, but it's another to be competent. So competency-based assessments also are going to be then at the core of the manner in which the work is being done. But at the same time, the process now of also doing the inductions is going to be part and parcel of the manner in which work is being done, so that we not only just induct those who are in the public administration sphere, but also those who are political actors, so that the roles can be clearly delineated and understood, and what informs what has to be done at any given point in time.
And you mentioned, points that are so critical, competency-based, the skills. And I suppose it'll, speak to another issue. The audit reports that we often see from the Auditor General, for example, that also tell us about municipalities that cannot even, give sufficient, statements when it comes to financial statements. Others cannot even account for their assets because they simply have to also get, consultants to come in. But in some instances, these very own consultants are not being supervised, and they're also not doing the work that they currently need to be doing.
Yes, the reports of the Auditor General are part and parcel of the work that we are doing. Besides everyone who have been part and parcel of the workshop, the Auditor General was also present there. Perhaps it's important just to mention, everyone who had participated in this process so that we can understand that the comprehensive plan that is going to be produced is going to at least, touch on all those key points that we require in order for us to do the work that we're supposed to be doing. So there was the Public Service Commission, the Department of Public Service and Administration. There was a portfolio committee for public service and administration. As I indicated, that we also had the United Nations Development Program with the World Bank, with the South African Local Government Association, we had the National Planning Commission, we had the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, we had the National School of Government, we had the Auditor General, as I indicated, we had the presidency being part and parcel of this process. So with all those kinds of meeting of minds, it becomes very clear that the process that has now been set in motion to say, with the professionalization framework now getting underway, we are going to be having within the environment where we are as a country, the head of public administration. So that will then be occupied by the Director General in the presidency. But the assumption is that with that person holding that particular position, within our own provinces, Directors General within the offices of the Premier's office are also going to be handling the similar kind of role within provinces, but then reporting to the head of public administration. So in a sense, we're going to be having then some kind of a seamless manner, but also a cohesive process that is going to guarantee that the kinds of efficiencies that we are looking forward to can then be put in place. But we are also going to be addressing the inefficiencies, that have been identified primarily, as you've rightly indicated, by the Auditor General. There are a number of reports, by the way, that were also produced by the Public Service Commission that highlight similar kinds of shortcomings. But we are simply saying that it's one thing to cry foul of those kinds of challenges, but it's another to put a plan in place that is to take us out of this particular conundrum and move in the direction where service must then be guaranteed. That's why we say that the only time when we'll have that kind of satisfaction will be when the service is delivered to the people of this country. So as things currently stand, we cannot afford to take it any further, because our view is that now we're on the precipice, of a disaster if nothing drastic happens.
And as you say, it's going to be important that this trickles down to provinces and local government as well. But Prof, thank you so much for your time. And as you say, that this plan that is currently being put in place is to ensure that we not only talk about what is taking place, but also speak about implementation. We await then to see what happens then in terms of this particular process. But I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you. That is Professor Mandla Makhanya, the Commissioner at the Public Service Commission.